Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Hello, greetings, salutations, howdy. I'm sitting here with my arms crossed.
So I'd say that's the most enthusiastic howdy that you've done in a while. Sarcasm fully intended.
Yeah. I'm in a mood right now. And I think listeners will, I would imagine, would completely side with me and be in a mood. You know what? This is not fair. A lot of us, need to pick me up on Monday. So maybe you may either need to erase that or
say, should we rewind?
Hey, y'all. How's everybody doing?
Let's restart.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Hope everybody's in a great mood today.
Because I'm about to ruin it.
Yes. Actually, I don't think I'm going to ruin it. I think you're going to give us some good tips to...
There we go.
When we find ourselves...
In said situation.
And we want to claw somebody's eyes out. Other than sending everybody a set of nail clippers. I think I would like your feedback on. Luckily it was you who got hit with this, but when you're telling me, I'm grateful for you yet again. We had an employee. You were in my office today.
Yes.
And you, it was just one of your days that you were there, and an employee passed you a note that said, "Can I talk with you?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what is that? Like, why wouldn't you just say, "Can I talk to you?" So what's all the secrecy hush-hush about it? Anyway, bottom line, one of the things that she brought up in her talk with you was, "I think I deserve a raise." Mm-hmm. And you were like, huh? Because she's been there 6 months, mm-hmm. right? 6 months, not more than that? No, it's right at 6 months.
Right at 6 months, yeah.
And she's not done anything terrible in the 6 months. However, we did agree to pay her more than what we wanted to when we hired her because of her background.
Yes.
So I think in my mind, I was like, oh, when she hits the ground running after she's initially trained, because she's got all of this other knowledge she's coming with, we hope that she will pick up faster than a new grad. Per se. Correct. But Bethany, I tell you, I don't know why I'm surprised. Why am I even saying this? Like, especially, the last couple of years, all the norms are out the window. Like, people have no idea where they should stand. It makes me think of that, what's your worth? Mm-hmm. And people just have this overinflated sense of worth. That has not gone away.
No. And people are more bold in asking for their quote unquote worth. I feel like it's become an environment where raise requests, or I want to feel more valued, or I want more holiday pay, or I want this certain schedule. It's this weird thing that is, I feel like, growing, where we're not ashamed or afraid to ask, like, kind of go get it type mentality. And
then I think, is it because you can because there's a worker shortage? But then I'm like, does it depend on the industry? Because people that are like, oh, I can't find a job in other industries that I hear about. I'm like, everywhere I go, there's a for hire sign. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, the jobs are there. Mm-hmm. It's the people and their wants that have changed. I want to come in at 10 o'clock, but I've got to leave at 2 to pick up my kids. I want an hour lunch break, and I want to make $40 an hour. Like... Okay, so I don't know where this mindset's coming from. Anyway, I'm just not focused here. Let me focus. So this employee hits you with, well, I think I deserve a raise because of whatever she's doing. And luckily she said it to you and not to me, because I don't think my face would have totally given the, are you out of your bleeping mind? Like, what on God's green earth makes you think that at 6 months in...
Yeah.
You are owed a raise. Are you kidding me?
And I would say that is even though we live in an environment of let me ask, I would say it's still not super common for somebody to ask for a raise before the 1 year mark, even in this environment.
And if they did, I would imagine that to be a 20-year-old who is clueless in her or his own little bubble. Oh, look at what I deserve.
Yeah.
I've always gotten a trophy for doing nothing. Let me get a raise for doing nothing as well. So,
Yeah.
but this is not that person. This is a seasoned person.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think in my mind, I'm going, what is wrong with you? Why do you think you deserve that? And so luckily, again, she said it to you and you were kind of like, okay, tell me more. This is kind of like really premature and all of that. So I guess to me, I'm kind of going, what do I do with that? Or why? I guess from my viewpoint, I'm like, you haven't even been earning what we agreed to pay you.
Yeah.
And I gave you grace for about 60 days, maybe 90, but we agreed to pay you that amount with the assumption that you had a strong background, and you've been wobbling around all over the place, not doing anything terrible, but
Right.
I mean, certainly I could have paid you, old pandemic rate, like $16 an hour.
Right.
And so what makes you think,
Like, where did this come from?
where did this come from? And so your thought was, because we've all been saying the last month, maybe month, more like 2 to 3 weeks, she just seems to have turned on and is not causing drama. It seems effective and all of that. And I'm like, what the hell happened? Like, what flipped the switch? And I think I said it to you a few days ago. I was like, Mike, I'm happy the switch flipped, but if it's flipped that quickly,
It can flip off.
it can flip off that quickly. So what is it? I need to try to figure out what is motivating her, what changed in her world. And so I think to me there's a lot of like, now because she's had several wins recently, but I'm like, it's been 3 weeks and you think you deserve this raise. Well, so you're sharing this with me and I'm kind of just jaw dropped trying to collect my drool off the floor going, what is happening? And I mentioned to you, because you asked something else and I said, well, yeah, so-and-so, is making this. And you're like, aha, there was another employee that just got a raise in the practice. Mm-hmm. And so that employee, your comment was that employee obviously said something
About receiving a raise. Yeah.
And now this employee is going, wait a minute.
If she
I do
got
as much as you do, if not more. Why don't I get a raise? I should ask for one too. She asked for one and I should ask for one. And I just was like, goddamn people, what happened to being like private and, like I would never go tell somebody else.
Other than your family or your spouse
Closest
or
friend.
something like that. It's weird though. I see this all the time, that I feel like raise requests come in patterns. And I like get on the edge of my seat when a raise request has come, because I know that this likely means multiple requests for the doctor will be followed behind this one.
So how have I done this long and this has never occurred to me? Like, have I just missed the signals, or are people getting bolder?
No, one of the things that you have done that I think has historically protected you from this is you have every February, we sit down and we have compensation reviews. And so I think because you have that structure in place, there's not this unknown, like, when am I going to get a raise, or when should I ask about a raise? The people that have been with you know it will always be evaluated in February, and that you're usually generous in the process of, if they are due for a raise, you are never going to hold back on that. And so,
in fact, I'm the one who seeks you out every other month. And I'm like, okay, how's everybody doing? Do you think I need to be giving a raise? Do you think, like, where are we with this person? We've seen all this extra value, or I know this person's going to be due a raise, quote, due a raise, we try not to do one like at the same time every year, but I think they pretty much know. Like, I think I would be defeated if I went 2 years without a raise. Right. So I think in my mind, I try to project that forward and go, okay, I'm sure that's what people are thinking. And so if I'm going, dude, this person's due in 5 months and there's no way I can justify this. So we need to pull them in and we need to figure out how to coach them and get them on the right track, which honestly helps the practice, because if you've got somebody kind of floundering, then you've got to figure out, is it a training issue? Is it a motivation issue? What is it? So it does help to have good conversation, but it also helps to go for that person to go, oh, I am being looked at, I am being watched, and I am being considered.
Yes.
And so there's multiple benefits to it.
I also feel like in addition to that compensation review, you're very clear if that raise is a large raise that's going to preclude them from another raise in the near future. You're very clear with that. So,
but historically, I've not really had to do that. So I'm going to interrupt you here, and then I'll let you get back to that because you obviously have a thought.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, what is a typical raise, or isn't there one?
I would say
what
most employees anticipate historically has been $1 more per hour. That's in the dental field. If there's a typical raise, the most common one is $1 per hour.
Okay.
When you have broken a norm, so to speak, meaning I can think of one employee in particular that a couple years ago you made a pretty substantial increase in hourly pay.
But the only reason I did that was because it was right at the pandemic time. It was right in the meat of all of that.
Yes.
So other than that, I can't think of another time that I've not done $1 an hour.
Right. That I would say that's been
for
the norm.
13 years. That's what I've done.
That's been the norm.
And I've never done, because I know people who do like 25 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
So I never liked that.
There is a formula that I can talk about that I actually like for raises that's not the typical $1 per hour. But I would say employees, if they're hoping for a raise, they're usually anticipating $1 per hour. I'm going to put a big asterisk by that. Remind me to come back to it because that's changed. So you've got these annual compensation reviews. Everybody knows it's going to be talked about then, and you've built goodwill with your team where they trust that you're going to make sure this is financially good for them. That prevents you from getting a lot of these raise requests. As a matter of fact, the one that you just got, the raise request that you received back in February, and the raise that you eventually delivered, that was the only raise request, and that was a part of the compensation meeting. Outside of that, we really haven't gotten many raise requests because it's so prescriptive. But also, the one that you jumped years ago, when you jumped multiple dollars per hour, and again, it was pandemic time, there's a lot of factors that came into play. You were clear in that meeting, this is likely going to mean that I won't be doing anything to your raise for a while. And we might have even said for at least a couple years or something like that. It was very clear in that meeting to this person, like, let's not talk about pay again for a while. And I feel like between you having a consistent method of talking about pay and then you being really clear when you've gone over and above what you thought you were going to be, there's clear communication like, hey, that we're not going to address this again. Let me go back to my asterisk. Historically, it's at $1 an hour is what people have always expected. I have seen more probably in the last 6 months that are hoping for multiple dollars per hour. I don't know if that's just happenstance and it's just a weird phenomenon that I've had multiple clients with somebody requesting multiple dollars per hour. I don't know if that's something actually changing in the world. I don't know.
So my first thought on that is, again, I think it's people are just asking because they think they can. I think it's some of my worth is this. And my my very catty comment back is, well, the only reason you're worth that is because you're in demand. Yeah. But your actual skill set and what you're bringing and delivering, I would say for most people, is not worth what you are asking. Mm-hmm. And it's still, I guess, it's neither here nor there. Like, yeah, I guess you're right. I need a assistant. I need a front desk. I need a sterilization person, right? Like, so maybe that's enough justification in your mind that you're worth that. But if you think about what you're actually providing on a daily basis, I don't think that we get what we're paying for.
Especially when you factor in what the rates used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's fair. And so maybe me just still not being able to fully let go of that yet. I'm just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
And then I start going, okay, well, are people going, well, you know, eggs used to cost $1.99 and now they're $4.99, and so therefore if I'm paying $3 more for eggs, maybe I should be getting paid $3 more per hour. I don't know.
That's definitely a huge part of it. I feel like some of the most recent one that I heard about before yours, a lady said, I mean, with the cost of living, I need multiple dollars an hour increase to be able to survive. So yes, I think that's part of it.
And I can empathize with that. I just don't know what to do about that. It's not like I'm sitting here lining my pockets and I'm not being affected by inflation. Like, have you seen what things cost in our dental offices now? Like, have we seen how much nitrous costs now? Have we, like, so I don't understand. And I think it's just willful not looking at it and wanting to understand it.
Or caring. I at the end of the day,
I choose not to think that because that's a negative, which I know I'm oozing negativity right now, but in my mind, like on a normal happy day, I'm kind of like, you know, I think it's just, it's not that you don't care. So you just have no clue. You don't know what you don't know.
And maybe that's a better way to say it. I think the things that I've heard over the years, the perception that staff members have about doctors is they're doing just fine. I don't feel too bad for them if they had to, because of expenses, skip last month's paycheck. Like, boo-hoo, they're okay. That is the general mindset, is that doctor makes plenty of money. Now, and we won't go into my mindset is that, yeah, but what did they do to get to a point where they get to earn that kind of money? They've been through a lot, invested a lot of time, resources, all of that to be able to get their DDS on the back end of their name so that they can earn a great wage. Like, what's that to you? You shouldn't care about that. But I think the general mindset is there's plenty enough to go around. They're fine. They can afford $2 or $3 extra an hour. So I think you're right. Maybe it's not lack of care. It's a lack of understanding, but also this general mindset, like, they're okay. I don't think they're hurting for money.
When did that change? That's not how it's been.
I know.
Anyway, so to get back on track here. So I guess my question to you is, or was, and you said that this often happens where people come in, you know, one person asks for a raise and guaranteed that person, either they, most likely they kind of said, oh, I got my raise, I'm so happy, you know, they look like they're in a better mood, or maybe they've been more, you know, quiet and stressed about, oh, I'm about to have this talk. So your teammates in a small office, maybe everybody can pick up on that.
Oh, I think it's more than that. Yes.
Okay. Tell me what you think.
I think it's overt sharing. Clear, definitive sharing. And the reason I say this is, and I have not witnessed this, but maybe on one occasion in all my years of doing this, there was one raise that I was blessed to be able to tell an employee about. And I was in a break room and I heard her walk out of that break room out onto the clinic floor, shut the door behind her, and she goes, woohoo, I just got a raise. I kid you not. And I was like, oh, good Lord. Like, that, not just shared amongst the team, but shared in the middle of patient care. And I mean, now again, is that happening every time? No, I definitely don't think so. But I saw that happen, heard that happen with my own ears. And I think versions of that happen quite often.
Well, and then when I said to you, I was like, well, yeah, you know, this person, whatever. And you were like, ah. So I don't know if the person who got the raise most recently, coincidentally, they happen to work in the same department. So, but I think it is, knowing the dynamic, they're a pretty close bunch up there.
Yeah.
And I bet you anything, there was a lot of...
That information was shared.
Not on purpose, I don't think, but not like, oh, well, if I do this, then I get a raise. But I think it was like, oh, I'm going to focus and I'm working on this. And if somebody said, oh, why do you have that look on your face? Oh, I'm just trying to concentrate because I've got to work on, I was told I need to work on this to get my raise. So they're talking about a raise.
Yeah.
And then finally when it's, oh, I got my raise. The facial expressions must have shown, the body language must have shown, tense one week, not tense the next. Let's connect the dots.
Right.
And I guess to me, you're right. I guess it just has not occurred to me because I haven't seen it so much. But again, for me, I come from the older school mentality of we don't talk about that nonsense. We're professional all the time, regardless. We don't wear our feelings on our sleeves at work all the time. And this is where I'm like, but is it my own fault? Because we do cultivate this environment of we're kind of a work family and we want to praise each other and, your wins in your life and your successes in life, whether it's personal or private, like we're here to support you. And so I guess for me, maybe what I need to be training my mind now, obviously, is to go, okay, well, clearly this is happening. Mm-hmm. And
getting out ahead of that.
Well, and also, okay, yeah. So is there a way to get out ahead of it? And then maybe going, if the chairs were switched in this environment where we're all oversharing everything because we have social media now, maybe that's the difference. Like, it's not oversharing because we're used to sharing what our plate of food looks like today with the world. So this is one more thing that's going on in my world and I'm going to share it. So is it just me because coincidentally I don't social media and I don't share all my stuff? So I mean, I guess I do. I'm sharing it on this podcast. So who am I to pot calling the kettle black? Good grief. So maybe to me that's like, is that a norm? And am I picking on people for something that is pretty normal and should be okay?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So I can't answer that question without my consulting hat being on. But no, I would prefer that information is not shared so that when one employee receives a compensation review, my clients, the doctors out there, are not being hit with multiple raise requests after that. My preference is that information is delicately professionally handled among the staff. Now, can we say, by the way, which has been historical in the past, by the way, if you share this information, you're fired? No, we can't say that. I still politely ask, like, hey, especially after the one experience that I had where she went out, and ever since then I've been like, I never knew I had to say this, but hey, by the way, we are talking about very, confidential information that pertains to you, and we're really excited for you. It's best if that information is professionally kept to yourself for the harmony of the team. We really want you to be able to celebrate this, but with your outside of work friends and family.
See, and I don't think that's a realistic expectation anymore because I guess, first of all, like, then are we talking about, well, I didn't tell them what I'm making. I just said I got a raise and they see how hard I work and my teammates want me to have a raise. People need to know, like, obviously people get raises. Otherwise, why would we all work here? You know what I mean? I think it's that mentality.
I know.
And I think they're sharing everything online anyway. Yeah. So I think I like what you just said about, I guess maybe let's brainstorm ways to get out ahead of it.
Get out ahead of it is the main recommendation at this point.
So now I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I would say get out ahead of it, but honestly, the get out ahead of it is not an easy suggestion. Because to me, if you don't have a system of raises and reviewing compensations, if you don't have a system in place, then it's very subjective. Because then it's like, oh, well, Sally came and asked me for a raise, and so I gave her one. Maybe without a bunch of thought, but I gave her one. Well, Sally went and told Susie, and then next thing I know, lo and behold, a week or two later, when Susie gets up the guts, Susie is asking me for a raise. So now I'm giving Susie a raise, and pretty soon you're going to make it through the whole, like, that's the worst way to give raises. So to me, the only way to get out ahead of it is by having a good system. Number one, having a fixed point in time where we're reviewing compensation with everybody. That's fair. Let's be honest. Like, every client that I suggest that to wants to avoid it like the plague, and I totally get it. Because then you're being forced into financial conversations that you may or may not want to have. But if you don't have those conversations, you will be affronted at some point with a request. And by the way, that request is going to be followed by multiple other requests because they've figured out, oh, this is the way we get raises on this team. Somebody's got to go ask. And then apparently that's when the raise comes. You do not want to be bombarded with a raise request. That's when you have to make knee-jerk reactions or you delay. You're like, oh, let me get back to you on that. And 3 months later, you're thinking about it. Well, now Sally quit because you didn't ever. So you need to be in control of the conversation. And that means being really clear with your team. By the way, public service announcement to my whole team. I am going to be reviewing compensation in August. That every year going forward is going to be the month that we review compensation. That does not mean that you're going to be guaranteed a raise. It means we will sit down and we will talk through how you did this last year in compensation, and we will have dialogue about it. Now, if a raise is granted, it will be granted in August. That is the month every year that I'm going to be making these decisions. And then, to take it a step further, you need to have a formula for raises. I don't recommend that it's subjective. When you and I sit down every February, we have spent the last month churning through numbers. We've received all this information from your CPA. We put it all onto this beautiful spreadsheet.
And that's churning through numbers a month before, but we've already been thinking about it.
Oh.
Probably from starting October.
Yeah.
Because we know we're about to get hit with multiple holidays, end of year, blah, 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 blah. And it's just very overwhelming. Money. We're bleeding money at the end of the year, personally, privately, all of that.
Yeah.
Personally, because it's the holidays, professionally. That's the word I meant to say. So it's like we are very aware of it and thinking about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And it's very clear to your team that we've put a lot of, by the time we get to those compensation meetings, your team knows you've put a ton of time and energy into preparing for these. It is well thought out. It is not haphazard. We've got thoughts and feedback down for them if they're not receiving a raise. We've got reasons why, what they need to do to work on. Now, we have in the past let people know if they've gotten to that February compensation review and they're not earning a raise because of performance related reasons or because their pay is commensurate with what everybody else is making. We give them a pathway to how to get an increase. Like, hey, we are not doing an hourly increase because, you got some performance things that we want you to work on, namely this, and this. And we will reevaluate with you in 3 months, or we will reevaluate with you in 6 months. We won't make you wait the whole year, but honestly, if these things haven't been improved, you'll be waiting until next year. So again, clarity is the word here, but I would also say preparation, and then clear communication with your team on when these conversations are going to occur. And technically, I tell people we won't really be talking about compensation outside of that period of time, because once a year is plenty enough time to raise people. I don't think you need to do multiple raises for somebody in 1 year unless they are new to your team and you've told them, hey, your starting rate is this, and after you get through the probationary period, provided that you've met these criteria, then I will raise you up to your normal rate. That I'm okay with, but again, that's been clearly communicated to them, and there's standards that they have to reach. So I would say getting out ahead of it, put it on the schedule, make it clear to your team, start preparing for it months in advance, look at the total compensation. What's the actual financial benefit to your employee, not just the hourly pay, but how much did they get in bonuses? How much did they get in 401k?
PTO and vacation days.
Yep, PTO, vacation days, all of that. And again, don't let that be what prevents you from increasing somebody if you're not commensurate with the rest of the dental world. If you're behind or you're just kind of average, they could go somewhere else.
How would I know that?
Ask around. Ask around. Ask your neighbors. Ask your buddies. If it's a similar area, that's going to be your best, ideally the same town is your best feedback. If you've got a dental CPA like you have, you could certainly ask them. Now they're going to be, your CPA is national data, so some of that's got to be taken into consideration, but you need to ask to see where you fall.
So I'm going to kind of continue creating more problems for you and no solutions. But in the same vein, I think right now what I'm hearing a lot of is, well, I don't have a choice because if I say you've got to work on these 3 things, or, and we'll come back and talk in 3 months, there's a high probability they're leaving. because there is an office down the street that they could probably go to and get that.
If you're just within the average pay, yes.
So I think that is going to be a big concern for people. Mm-hmm. Also, what are your thoughts about, I think you said this a while ago to me, and I was like, I don't know. If you had, say, I don't know, 4 RDAs and 1 leaves, mm-hmm. and now you've got the 3, mm-hmm. and you decide not to replace the 4th. Mm. And now the other 3 are like, well, shouldn't we be getting paid more because now we're doing more work because we've got 1 less person helping us?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because if you've got 3 RDAs that aren't saying something to you, do not assume that they don't think it's a problem. It is. I can tell you, every time that situation has occurred in one of my clients' offices, every single RDA is thinking mathematically, he used to pay for 4. And now that the workload has been spread amongst the 3, we're working harder. And he has no intention of hiring somebody. I want more money.
Okay, because now you're saying that's the exact boat I'm in right now. And this whole time I'm going, I'm fine. So I guess after we get off this podcast, we need to talk about that. I just thought I was throwing out. Okay, anyway.
Well,
all right.
And I would say, if the intention is to replace that 4th, and it's just a matter of weeks, months even, that's fine. Leave it status quo. Maybe give some love tokens to them, like, hey, here's, an extra $100 or something because I know you're carrying a heavier load. So recognize them in that way. We are trying to hire somebody. We're going to get somebody on board. The only time that I would go back and reevaluate their hourly pay is if you're like, hey, wow, we can handle it with 3. I never intend to hire a 4th again, or at least not until there's more patients on the schedule, more production. Great. Then spread out some of that hourly pay that you used to pay the person and give increases to your 3. If you're committed to the idea of sticking with 3 for a bit, then I wouldn't increase the hourly pay. Yours, to me, is more temporary. I think your goal would be to get back up to the 4th assistant. So in the interim, then maybe it's little extra tokens of thanks to them. The other thing, as far as getting out ahead of this, is, so that's one way to get out ahead of it, by the way, is if you're scaling down your team but not scaling down your production, you need to consider, do people need raises? Because they're thinking that they need a raise if their workload has grown. The other thing is you need to have a formula for the raise. So ours is pretty simple. We
have a formula. You keep saying formula. I'm like, that's all you.
Well, your formula basically is $1.
Okay.
$1 per hour or whatever it may be. But some have an actual formula, which I think works well. So the raise can be somewhere between 0% and whatever, pick the top, 5%, 6%. And then they actually figure out, based on these performance metrics, whatever, it can list like 10. I've got one client that's got like 25 different things listed. And out of those 25 different things, they can be underperforming, on target, severely underperforming, on target, above target. And then that ranges from a 0% raise if they're severely underperforming, 1% raise if they're below target, which sounds crazy. But technically, if somebody's below target, at that annual review, they would get a 1% raise. That's what people call a cost of living raise. So there's still a raise for that person, but it's like 1%, tiny, 20 cents.
The whole thing just makes me cringe, though, thinking, how can I look at somebody in the face and go, you are severely below target?
Well, to be fair, that doesn't happen very often because severely below target finds their way off the team.
Okay, or even below target.
Below target, yes.
But there's some that you're never going to be better at this. That is not your skill set.
But they're on target or above target in some categories, which at least makes the below. And most of the time when somebody's below target in something, they're like, yeah, I know. I get that. But all that to say, mathematically, if you think about my client that has these 25 qualities and all of these are rated either severely below, on target, or above target, and that represents a 0, 1%, 3%, or 5% raise, you add all the scores up, and that equals somewhere between 0 and 5%.
But what does 0 to 5% dollars equate to?
Depends on their hourly. So let's say they're $20 an hour. We'll do easy math here. Let's say they're $20 an hour and they have, once you balance it all out, it's a 2% raise. That would be 20 cents. So it breaks the mold of $1 per hour and then becomes this percentage increase. And that percentage increase could be 0 to 10%. Like, I don't care what the percentage is, but it's a very objective way of figuring out what a raise is. It just seems like
a lot of work, because I was about to say it sounds very subjective. Like, if I say you're below target on this, well, no, I'm not. This, and now we're going back and forth over.
Well, and in fairness, this does blur the lines between compensation and performance, right? Now, they have a separate performance review on an annual basis. So this particular doctor does a full-on only performance. And then he does the separate, thankfully, like I recommend the separate compensation. But this, we wanted a very formulaic way to administer raises because he's in a situation where he can't do $1 per hour every year. Just can't. It's not sustainable. So this gives us, it blurs the line between performance. Basically, your performance gives you a certain percentage of raise. And actually, the feedback from his team is very positive on that. They love the, one of the ladies that I presented to a year ago was like, thank you. Now I have a roadmap on how to earn 5% next year. I know exactly what I need to work on. So it gives them a lot of control in moving the needle to a bigger raise.
I just can't see somebody being happy if I turned and said your raise now for the next year is 20 cents.
No. I can't say that that's what they want. I mean, nobody wants a 20-cent raise. But I think if that's subjective, like, oh, by the way, congratulations, you got a 20-cent raise. Well, that feels different than, hey, we've sat here and talked through mathematically. This is where the raise falls. And I would say it is a helpful model when you're at the top tier of compensation. When you've got Sally that's been there 20 years and you're like, I can't keep raising Sally $1 per hour per year, you're exactly right. Now you got to figure out a cost of living raise, which is more of that 1% or 2% raise. So I would say that's the only solution. You can lightly encourage your team members not to share, but knowing that they're going to share, you need to have a system for getting out ahead of it.
Yeah, I think that's my realization from bantering here with you is silly me. I should have seen that coming and going, it doesn't mean they're bad employees or they're whatever. It just is. We're in a arena of oversharing everything. And so why that hasn't occurred to me until now, I guess I'm the dum-dum.
Well, and we just haven't had to worry about it because it's always been tied to those February compensation reviews. And this is
a person that her February review had only worked with us for 4 months and was very average at best.
Yeah. So
I guess this is the time to get it under control and really lay the groundwork for her.
Yep. I agree completely. Yeah. Because now we've kind of been blindsided by this, which we normally aren't. This hasn't happened in a really long time. So we were blindsided. So now it's our opportunity to lay some groundwork now so that we are not blindsided by this again.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.